25. Oh, there is?
Doesn't it say somewhere? Yeah, 35, right in the upper 35.
How many? 35.
What's here? What there normally is.
Yes, yes.
Like the speaker right behind it.
And they okay. So, I guess we're about ready to start. Heather.
Yes.
So we're going to start our town meeting. Welcome to the annual Chester Town Meeting for 2022. I'm Bill Dakin, the moderator, and we're delighted that we are meeting in a hybrid manner, both in person and on Zoom. As we are starting the meeting, let's commence with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. In this hybrid manner of meeting, we are not only going to have opportunity to speak from the floor, but as well from Zoom. But importantly, this is an informational meeting. This meeting will not include motions to put a certain article on the floor for discussion. This meeting won't allow an amendment to an article, nor will this meeting allow for a vote. Tomorrow is town meeting to have our election, and between 9 a.m. and 7 p.m. you can come to the town hall if you haven't already voted, and up here on the second floor you can cast your ballots. So tonight we encourage everybody to participate as they wish, who may have things to say or have questions to ask or comments to make. As any town meeting, as you want to be recognized, want to speak on an article, we ask that you, first of all, indicate that you want to speak and be identified by the moderator. And once you have been recognized, then please give your name. Deb Aldrich, our town clerk, is keeping track of who's speaking, and it's really important, particularly with those who are here in masks, and we are delighted you're wearing your mask, and those who are zooming in to be identified for the minutes. Another point too, Zoom, we're getting through, and we have 40 people on Zoom. The folks on Zoom will be muted. Everybody will be given an opportunity to speak. If you want to speak, please indicate by waving your hand, and you will be identified. So, Amy, is there anything else I should say about that?
No, I don't think so.
All right.
Kind of be patient.
Everybody on Zoom is presently muted. So when you're identified, recognized, and given the opportunity, you will have that chance. So let's enjoy this opportunity. It's always a little different. And we will commence by going over the warning of the town meeting. The legal voters of the town of Chester are hereby notified and warned to meet on Monday, February 28, 2022 at 6:00 p.m. via Zoom and/or in person for a hybrid informational meeting on the following articles. Voting on all articles will be by Australian ballot tomorrow, March 1, 2022, from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the Chester Town Hall, second floor. Article 1, to elect town officials for the ensuing year as provided by the public laws of Vermont. I would refer you to the town report. Most of you have a copy. If you don't, copies of the town report are on the table in the back hallway. The town report has information about those offices that are eligible for filling. Candidates have already petitions, and so tomorrow will have a chance to vote for those town offices. Article 2, shall general obligation bonds or notes of the town of Chester in an amount not to exceed $280,000, subject to reduction from the receipt of available state and federal grants and aid, be issued for the purpose of providing additional funds to complete Popple Dungeon Bridge, grant match on Route 35 construction and paving the town garage, Flamstead Road, and Wheeler Road. Said projects and paving to be financed for a term of 7 years. Again, this article will be on the warning, the ballot tomorrow. But we can commence with Article 2 to ask, does anybody have any questions or comments about Article 2? Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Martin, Nancy Henry, where is Wheeler Road?
So the question is, and I think what we're going to do now that Nancy Lindsay has first spoken, is ask as you speak either to stand up and speak loudly or come to the microphone, because those on Zoom will not hear your question about where Wheeler Road is. Where's Wheeler Road?
Wheeler Road's a small dirt road off of Lover's Lane up near the Tomaso property. It's a very steep incline, and there's a small section of it that's paved because it's so steep. I didn't know where it was 2 weeks ago either. I knew where it was. I didn't realize it was paved, part of it.
I didn't know it was paved either.
Any further questions or comments about Article 2? Are there any questions or comments from our audience on Zoom on Article 2? There being no further questions or comments on Article 2, we'll move on to Article 3. It's really not the same, is it? Article 3, to see if the town will vote to raise $3,420,030.44 to be paid to the town of Chester treasurer on September 15, 2022, to pay current expenses and any part of the town's indebtedness. Are there any questions or comments on Article 3? We're going to ask Julie Hance, our town manager, to make her presentation on the town budget.
One quick second here, and they'll pull up the PowerPoint for me. Here we go. What was that?
Can I just point out, for those of you who can't see it, there's a PowerPoint on the screen, and while the information is also in your town report, you may find that this is helpful to pay attention to the PowerPoint.
And I'll be talking through for those who maybe can't see it. Do people need the screen turned, or are we good? I think we're good. Okay. 2022 general fund budget. So 2021, as we all know, was a tough year in many respects, with COVID continuing to bring several hurdles to the town, as it has nationwide. Dramatically increasing rise in costs. All departments, again, did an amazing job in searching out, spending only money that needed to be spent, cutting those things that were not necessary to the best of our ability. In our own combat of COVID, the town had adopted operational policies within ourselves, and we're very happy to say, while we did have a few positive cases here and there, the town itself, staff had no outbreaks internally, which was good, because you can imagine the impacts of your entire Public Works Department being out with COVID. So we were pleased about that. Town Hall and all municipal buildings are in full operation now and open to the public. with a grant from the original CARES Act and then also some through the Arpa funding, the town clerk's office was able to digitize, finally complete the digitization of 40 years worth of land records, allowing title searches and research in general to be completed online. The goal for 2022 is that we will use additional funding, either ARPA funding or secure grant funding from the state to digitize all land records that we have in the vault so that all title searching, all research can be done remotely if necessary. So that it will be a big undertaking, but we are hoping to get that grant funded in 2022. Val was joined by Kathy Hasbrook in our lister's office. They are working hard to stay on top of all that assessing in a municipality involves, a lot of details, a lot of ever-changing mandates from the state, et cetera. So we now have 2 in the lister's office and are also continuing to contract with NEMRIC as we did last year. Losing Wanda Purdy in 2020 is a big loss to a municipality when they've worked for us for over 20 years. So we are making strides to make sure we're filling that slot. Planning Zoning Office has definitely seen some changes. We have hired Preston Bristow as our new zoning administrator, town planner. Preston comes to us with a very long history of zoning and planning practices throughout the state. We are extremely fortunate to have him. He brings with him a wealth of knowledge. Understanding the needs of Chester, the enforcement issues that we have. We know we hear a lot about new junkyards and properties popping up all over town during COVID. Enforcement is a big undertaking for us in 21 and 22. So knowing that we have that, the select board approved the increase of that position to a full-time position. Preston will also be working with me on grant writing for the town to take some of that off of my plate, and also to work on economic development and marketing, as he does have experience and a background in that. So moving him to full-time will definitely help out the office staff and the town. Development Review Board and Planning Commission are often the thankless volunteer positions for the town. So I'd like to thank all those that work on those boards. It is not an easy task if you've ever worked in planning or zoning in a municipality. And I just want to thank them for the number of hours that they put in, the amount of hard work that they're putting into rewriting bylaws, issuing permits. Again, it tends to be a thankless job. So I just want to thank them again for their work that they're doing for the town. Public safety, moving on to public safety, the new building is completed. We did have an open house this year, which was very well attended. Fire, police, and ambulance are working on community events that they can hold in that building. You should see some of those this summer. Just wanting to welcome the community into the building. While it is the public safety building and there are certainly parameters, it is a building provided by the community, and we want the community to be able to be in there, see the building, and understand those services. Policing, as we all know, in the country has changed dramatically over the past couple years. Chester is doing its part to ensure that our officers are properly trained in the areas of use of force, fair and impartial policing. Additional training was acquired in 2021 by our law enforcement officers, and that will be continuing into 2022. So I just want the citizens and residents of Chester to feel secure that we are doing our part in making sure that the policing that we're doing is proper and fair to our municipality. The budget, PD budget, is showing a decrease this year. It appears that it's a decrease. It's actually a slight increase. Just we're not paying cash for a cruiser this year that we did last year. The increase for the PD is primarily due to an external assessment that we are having done. We are having a company come in do a deep dive into our police department. What are we doing well? Where do we need to improve? Where are efficiencies that can be made? We did this with the ambulance service last year. Found it to be very effective, very helpful. So police department is kind of next on the slate there for that review. It's a review that will involve the community to the best that we can. Hearing from the community about what it would like in its police department. What does community policing mean to you? We all have a different idea of what that looks like. So it will be a very thorough process that will take place probably over several months. So you can stay tuned for notices of that will be happening this year. So the fire department, not a whole lot of change there other than they are in their new building and loving it and thankful for it. The fire department responded to 248 calls in 2021. That is a significant increase over 2020. And the details of that are in the town report, breaks down what those calls were. The fire department budget you'll see is down for 2022. And there are no additional capital purchases requested for fire department for this year. So on to ambulance for finishing up public safety. Dan Cook, who was our ambulance coordinator for, I think, 30 years, resigned in 2021. So thank you again and again for all of the service that he has given to Chester residents. Amanda Silva was moved into the position of ambulance chief and is doing an amazing job. Chester Ambulance reported to 478 calls in 2021. Again, an enormous increase over 2020. We are finding that public safety services are really getting pressured in these current days. The ambulance budget you will see is up slightly. This is primarily due to an EMT certification course that we are holding at our new building. We have 9 individuals, I believe, that are currently taking that class to become certified EMTs for the town of Chester. Employment in emergency services statewide is becoming a real concern. Small services are having issues finding staff. The amount of coursework requirements that are training that's required to be an EMT in the state of Vermont, anywhere in the country, is quite extensive. So when it's not a full-time job that they're getting paid to do, it's hard to find part-timers and or volunteers to take that on. Again, statewide issue, but Chester has several people in the works to doing that training now. So we should be in a different position a few months from now. Moving on to Public Works. Highway Department had a very busy year, as always. Delays, I think they were the most challenged with the delays in getting construction materials as well as the increase of cost. We are, in Chester, are extremely fortunate, we say it every year, that we have a highway crew that is extremely resourceful, can build just about anything with very little. So we are very blessed to have them, and they've pulled it off again this year. The highway budget did see a deficit for the 2021 budget year, due really to the costs of materials. Bridge decking tripled in price, those types of things. However, highway did have a very healthy surplus, so there's no tax increase coming from highway, which is helpful. Again, good reason why we have those healthy fund balances and healthy surpluses in our departments. Any deficit and or surplus that highway has at the end of the year stays within highway, so it does not overall affect the general fund budget. And you'll see that highway expenses are up in 2022, and this is due to the contribution to the capital in the bond plan from purchases that have been made over the past 2 and 3 years. Those first payments are now becoming due. Not up tremendously, but we'll see.
Chuck said something in the end about, were you there for the end?
No.
You got it. Renovations to the highway garage have begun, hoping to be completed this spring. I will say now, we are anticipating that there will be cost overruns on that project. Again, we're doing renovations during COVID. That comes with an elevation in cost. We also found that in the middle of this project, it was the perfect time to replace the 4 modines. Did I say that right? I don't know, something like that. The 4 heating units that hang in the town garage. They were not originally part of the project, but are finding that now is the time to do it. They come with a cost of $35,000 to $40,000, which was not initially budgeted. So we know that we're going to end, at some point, we're going to end this project with cost overrun on highway. We're going to look at it when we actually know what that number is, anticipating it'll be somewhere between $100,000 and $140,000. Arpa funds can be used to offset that, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, or the town can borrow. But that will be a discussion we'll have once we actually know the number. We are doing everything we can to cut costs where we can without compromising the project itself. So there will be more on that coming. Town finally, 3.5 years later, obtained our Act 250 permit for the gravel pit. Land was cleared and a road installed. Excavation did begin at the end of the summer, in the fall. This budget is recognizing a small benefit of that. Until we get excavating and know what we really have for material in the ground, we're hoping that 2023 budget will show the greatest benefit of that pit. Recreation Department budget is up slightly, really only due to cost of living increases. And the 2021, I think the biggest thing that we had was the pool liner was ripped due to a skateboarder who decided that looked like a great ramp in the spring, so ripped the pool liner and that had to be replaced. So that did increase the Recreation Department's expenditures in 2021. In 2022, you're going to see improvements to the skate park through the use of a grant that we received this year. And you will also see long overdue improvements to the tennis courts. If you use the tennis courts, you notice there is a big crack down of them that is being completed in 2022. On to facilities. We have a facilities budget, or facility section of the budget. Library is showing an increase due to a stipend that has been requested for full-time employees, a contribution towards their health insurance. Town hall budget, relatively flat, but does include some renovations to the downstairs. Now that PD has moved out and is in their space, renovations are being done downstairs, and a small conference room is being added back where it used to be in the front of the building years ago. That conference room is coming back. And we talked about recreation, the revitalization budget, the historic facilities line does include, again, repairs to the plaster ceiling at the Academy building. Was supposed to have been done in '21. He had some issues with COVID, hoping that will take place in the spring of '22. Finally, the west slope of the Academy roof is being replaced with the assistance of a grant, and some work at the Yosemite Firehouse. The biggest change to this budget is, for the 2022 budget, is the addition of a facilities director for the town. This would be a full-time position. With the number of historic buildings and property that the town of Chester has, we are finding that maintenance of these buildings is becoming expensive and it's becoming difficult, and we, as a staff of Chester, don't really have the knowledge or time or whatever you want to call it, to maintain the buildings. It's expensive when we have to hire out contractors to do things like replace a ramp, et cetera. So the addition of the facilities director, the very first task would be that they would get all of the buildings on a maintenance plan, do a full assessment, get them all on a maintenance plan, that could be modified, obviously, as the years go by. This person would be somebody who has experience, long experience as a contractor, so that much of the work, where reasonable, could be done in-house. In addition, this person would be responsible for providing that seasonal assistance. An example is, in the spring, highway is always looking for, assembling bridge decking, those types of things. We always need that one extra person. Rec, 2 weeks in the spring, every year, getting the fields ready, getting the baseball nets up. We always have to hire that one extra person for a couple of weeks. Every department has that need, and this person could fill that need, saving costs in the other departments as well. So that is the big ask for 2022. Long overdue. We feel that it is very necessary in keeping the buildings that we have to the level that we want them to remain. They are historic buildings in town, a lot of work, and need to be maintained on a consistent basis. So this year's budget did end in a deficit of about $147,000. The contributor to this deficit is COVID costs, but is also cost overruns on the public safety building. The 2020 audited general fund balance for Chester ended at $585,000. We are proposing that the deficit of 2021 fall into that fund balance so that taxes do not need to be raised to resolve that deficit situation. That would leave the anticipated 2021 deficit at fund balance at roughly $438,000. Again, probably people have a lot of questions as to why there was such cost overruns on the public safety building. There are a few reasons for that. Again, we're building a large building in COVID times. Contracts are not bound in the event of a pandemic. We did work very hard to keep those costs as low as we could. Brought in a lot of ingenuity in trying to come up with creative ways to complete the project and not lose the integrity of the building. In addition, we did learn that there were some expenses that were agreed upon that would be paid outside of the bond that were revealed to us in 2021. So unfortunately, we had that we needed to deal with as well. But again, we are very thankful that we have a very healthy fund balance. This is why we have a healthy fund balance in a municipality, so that when unforeseen things like this come up, it can fall through to the fund balance and not raise taxes. So that is the proposal to resolve that issue. Capital bond plan, there's not a whole lot this year. Highway, we have decided that it is a perfect year to skip the purchase of a dump truck. So that will not be slated for purchase in 2022. However, 2 of the pickup trucks are due for replacement. So this capital plan proposes the purchase of 2 pickup trucks, and we are in rotation for a cruiser. The cemetery mower does not need to be financed. It can be paid. That full amount of the cemetery mower is budgeted in the 2022 budget. In the $280,000 bond, again, looking to only bond paving-related projects. This year's $280,000 will be additional funds necessary for Paul Dungeon, that bridge. The last phase of Route 35 construction, as well as paving at the town garage property, that small section on Wheeler Road, and a small section on Flamstead Road. And then on to maybe a little better news, ARPA, well, depends on what pocket you want to talk about, ARPA funding. So the town of Chester Everybody has heard about ARPA, the American Recovery Plan Act. Chester is receiving approximately $900,000 from the ARPA funds. We have received the first 450, came in 2021, remaining 450 expected to come in the spring of '22. Discussion has begun on the best uses of those funds. It is my desire, to use those funds in a way, be creative, use them for one-time projects, and use them in a way that best serves as many residents in Chester as possible. We could easily spend this probably at least 5 times over. So we are thankful for the $900,000, but we want to take our time, be creative in how we spend.
Chester Town Meeting.
Obligated until 2024 and spent until 2026. So we have time to go through a good community process on this, make sure that we are doing projects that are what the community is looking for. So the board did have one meeting on this. A list has been started. I'm happy to share that with anybody that's interested. Or if you have ideas or things that you would like to see, please feel free to reach out to me. The select board will definitely be discussing it at future agendas, future meetings. So stay tuned and definitely be thinking about what you would love to see in the community that those funds could be used for. And then just water sewer is not part of the municipal budget, but critical pieces of our infrastructure. Both projects are running with a very healthy fund balance as well. Secondary wells being established, being researched, for the town, and upgrades to the sewer plant will be coming in 2022, end of 2022. So this 2022 budget is proposing an increase of roughly $77,000, which is a little under 2%, or about $0.015 on the tax rate. Given the times that we are in, we feel that this is a responsible budget, and are looking for the voters' support. And I can answer any questions anybody might have.
Yes.
Back to Sharon.
I'm just curious about the swimming pool. Did this be identified, and if so, should they have paid for the repair? And if not, was there no insurance to cover something like that?
So, did we find them? Do we know who did it? No. So the problem that we had initially was that on most of the municipal buildings, there were no security system. There was no security cameras. We've never had to. I can tell you all municipal buildings now have security cameras, which is unfortunate and was a very large expense. And again, probably a contributor to part of the deficit situation. Between the security system for all municipal buildings, we paid close to $40,000. We could have submitted to insurance, but the cost ended up not necessarily being worth. And the biggest issue with the pool was that it delayed the opening. We didn't open the pool until mid-July, which was unfortunate. But once we were able to get Renovations here from Indiana to fix it, because they were the only ones that could fix that type of a tear, or the ones that installed it, we were able to get it up and running. The other thing we did at the same time was repaired. We had plumbing issues in the pump house, which Arnie could probably give you more detail on. But so we were able to replace a bunch of that stuff as well.
Amy's trying to get your
Oh, sorry.
So just a reminder that if you're going to speak over here, you need to come to the microphone so people on Zoom can hear you. Okay? So they're asking for you to repeat the question.
So the question was, did we find out who it was that did the damage to the pool, and why would insurance not have paid for that? And I think you heard my answer.
Also, Steve on here has a question.
Steve, who?
I'm not sure if it was Steve Mancuso or Steve. There was no last name, it just said Steve.
So they have to identify themselves.
They need to, so as you bring it up.
Tim Roper has his hand up. I'm not was, though.
All right, well, we'll go with Tim, because we know him. Sorry. Good job. I just do that.
Good. Is that right, Jeff? Anyway, that's the budget report from the town manager. Are there other questions or comments on the report?
Yes, I have a question.
Tim Roper, where are you?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Julie, thanks for a great presentation. That was very well done. The question I have in my mind is, you mentioned that some of the cost overruns that came from the public safety building were, I think what you said was something that was revealed to you and wasn't included in the bond. I wonder if you could just provide some more detail on that. I'm just curious about that.
I can. I learned in early 2021, early 2021, when the project got going, that during the planning phase, there were agreements made that certain items would be out of the contract and the town would pay for those themselves. These included the propane tank installation, which was around $30,000, the whole security system for the police, which was about 30-something thousand. There were several things that came to about the tune of about $135,000 to $140,000. I wasn't aware of that because I was not part of the planning process for this building. So we did not know about it. It wasn't revealed to me until 2021, after the budget had already been set. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up, though. So when you say it wasn't revealed to you, is that a factor of from the contractor or from someone within the town?
That is not the responsibility of the contractor. That was with previous administration.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Further questions or comments on the budget?
May I speak? Hello.
Steve Mancuso, is that you?
Yes, thank you, Bill. I'd like to roll it back to the gravel pit. As I understand it, if we were to harvest, not harvest gravel locally, it would cost the taxpayers a great deal. So we have the resource in town, but there was a complaint put in, and I would like some information on that complaint. Who in this town put in that complaint? Why did they put that complaint in? Thank you.
So I'm not aware of a complaint by anybody in Chester.
I'll email it to you, Julie.
Okay, that's news to me.
No, it's public knowledge.
Steve, you asked the question that's being responded to, and for everybody, let the response come, and then once the response is finished, then you may continue.
Yes, sir, thank you.
I am not aware of a complaint that was made against the town. If there was, and it's something I need to address, then certainly please reach out and let me know. The delay in receiving the permit was, I don't want to go in a public meeting and cause issues with the state agency, but we had a lot of issues in this process. With the state, and I will just leave it at that. We'll remain professional, leave it at that.
Julie, during the whole process of the Act 250 that we went through, we didn't have any opposition at all.
No,
from
no.
anybody in town, any of the abutters, from the school, from anybody during that whole process.
That I am aware of,
So-
correct. Yeah.
Further questions or comments? There being none, then we're going to leave Article 3. And as we continue, let me just do the first thing. just to remind us that sitting in front of you is your select board and your town manager and town clerk. Debbie Aldrich to my right, Julie Hance, town manager, Arnie Janinas, chair of the select board, Heather Chase, Lee Dakin, Jeff Holden, and Lee Gustafson are your select board members. And so we're delighted that you are here to let them respond to any questions you may have. Further, I'm delighted to give a couple of our state representatives an opportunity to address us. Present tonight is Allison Clarkson, our state senator. Also, Tom Bach is present by Zoom, so I'm going to ask Allison if you'd like to take a few moments just to address the body.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It is really a pleasure to be in person. This is great. And thank you very much for welcoming me. I love coming to Chester. I'm Allison Clarkson. I'm one of your 3 state senators. Dick McCormick and Alice Nitka couldn't be here tonight. They're at other meetings. As you know, we represent 26 towns. So tonight I have 5 town meetings. So I'm going to, Debbie and Julie are kindly letting me use downstairs to zoom in to Mount Holly, West Windsor, Windsor, and Norwich. So thank you for hosting me tonight to get to all those. I serve you in the Senate as the Vice Chair of Senate Economic Development, Housing, and General Affairs, and on Senate Government Operations. I also am honored to be the Majority Leader of the Senate, and this year I'm serving on the Senate Reapportionment Committee. As you will remember, every 10 years we have a census, and the good news is that Vermont gained population, which is exciting, not by much, but enough. And the bad news is that most of it is in the Northwest. Most of it's in Chittenden County and Franklin County. And the Northeast Kingdom lost the most. The South lost a bit. And we're in the middle of that sort of thorny work of redrawing the districts, the Senate districts, and the principles we're really trying to hold to are county lines and equity in terms of representation, the number of people we all represent. So those are the sort of chief principles that the Constitution charges us with and that we are working under. And it's obviously a bipartisan, actually it's a tripartisan committee. So the priorities for the Senate this year are they won't surprise you. Workforce, housing, climate change mitigation, and the continued COVID response. Plus, we have a bunch of have-tos. We have to do reapportionment. We have to bring our pension funds, our public pensions funds into sustainability. We have to address the inequities in the weighting formula in our education finance. We need to pass a budget, and we need to get those constitutional amendments out of the legislature and to the voters, which we have managed to do. So we will have 2 amendments coming to the voters. Proposition 2, which addresses improving the language about slavery in the Constitution. We're all very proud that we were the first state to abolish slavery. On the other hand, we only abolished slavery for those 21 and older. So we have in this light, well, it was important to a lot of people. So, and the second one is Proposition 5, which guarantees reproductive liberty for every person in Vermont. Vermont's COVID recovery money is having significant impacts on our ability to finance priorities we only could have dreamed of years ago. $3.56 billion have flowed into Vermont thus far, to Vermonters, to the state, to the towns, as you've heard. 900,000 coming in ARPA money to Chester. It is astonishing, and we are taking full advantage of it. We're investing in housing, childcare, community infrastructure, transformational regional economic development, education, workforce development, internet connectivity, and climate change mitigation. The housing crisis is one of the things I work on pretty closely, and we are investing in a range of housing. We've already spent close to $200 million. We've never spent that much money, but we were able, as you know, to turn on a dime and be able to house the homeless in this state, which was incredible. We're increasing housing for the homeless, for the low income, for mixed income, for workforce and market rate. Our focus is on increasing housing density and reducing barriers to development within our downtown and village centers. And the work includes improving rental housing health and safety, getting new or renovated housing units onto the market through VHIP and through the development of accessory dwelling units. So we can bring a lot of units into the online through upgrading vacant and blighted properties and properties that are not code compliant. And there are $30,000 matching grants for any of you who are landlords and want to bring some of those properties up to speed and back into the marketplace. We are streamlining the permitting process. We're working on bylaw modernization. You have taken advantage of those great land record digitization, which we've needed to do. We're improving our mobile home parks and lots of other things, including a first-generation home ownership program, which is, I think, kind of exciting. We continue to support the economic recovery for COVID's hardest-hit businesses, the business sectors of hospitality, the special events, and the creative sector, which continue to be hammered. And they're struggling significantly. And we are also making capital investment plans. ARPA money allows us to make investments going forward that address some of the ARPA issues that we know exist with HVAC systems and all sorts of other things that we are working on. And we're cleaning up those contaminated brownfields, which we can develop on if we can only get them cleaned up. And we'll be making some strategic investments in our upskilling and educating our workforce. So much is happening at the state that it's hard to choose what to highlight, but I'd like to highlight one thing as I close. It's a major accomplishment of the state, and it's something we should all be proud of, which is the plan to make our public pensions sustainable into the future. We had a task force that worked on this. Labor came together with the state, and we really wrestled out and came into compromise, which is one of the things we in Vermont do really well. People who disagree, if they work hard enough and walk in each other's shoes, can come to compromise. And this agreement protects the public pension system. It saves the taxpayers about $2 billion in the upcoming years and maintains the defined benefit. And we should all be very proud of that work. And the Senate has, my committee's passed it out, now goes to the Appropriations Committee, but it's very exciting, and it was a big unfunded liability that every one of us as taxpayers held. So it's great that it's getting on the right footing. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I treasure serving you, and let me give it back to Bill and maybe to Tom. Thank you.
Thank you. Allison, if they want to reach you, what's the best way to communicate with you?
I think it's in the book, but Sean has it. You can, all of us are reachable. So Tom and all of us, every legislator, and every committee. If you want to email a whole committee, you're able to do that. Our legislative website is legislature.vermont.gov. And I think legislators are in the town report. I hope, I'm hoping they are. Anyway, and if not, my column, which the Chester Telegraph publishes every other week or so, has it. But the Vermont legislative website is fabulous. Every committee has its own web page. All of our bios, all of our contact information is there. And Julie knows how to reach me. Bill knows how to reach me. Everybody here knows how to reach me. Anyway, I'm yours.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good luck. So Allison Clarkson, our senator, is kind enough to be here. We're also delighted to welcome Tom Bach, our legislator, who's here via Zoom. And Tom, if you'd like to share a few words.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. You asked me to be brief. I have two forms to this talk. I have the long form and I have the brief, and I will assure you I will give you the brief. First of all, I'd like to echo some of the things that Julie Hance talked about, and I would like to thank our town manager, Julie, our town clerk, staff, highway department, public safety employees, volunteers, and anybody else I may have missed who are keeping the town running smoothly and forward during these difficult past few years. We are halfway through the 2022 legislative session. In my town meeting report, I have described some of the bills, issues that we in the House have been working on, and some we have voted on and passed, and some we are still deliberating. You will find these reports in the hallway on my town meeting report, and also on Town of Chester's website. As always, feel free to call or email me for more information on these and other issues. Your feedback is critical to our work. My contact information is on the report. Also, I'd like to say that over the last 2 years, I've been in contact with folks who have lost their jobs, who have lost businesses, and worst of all, have lost friends and family to this pandemic. So now, as we see light at the end of the tunnel, I beg you all to be vigilant, careful, and pray to God that we finally end this pandemic. And who knows, maybe this Easter, it will be over. Thank you.
Tom Bach, thank you very much. Thank you to you and to Allison, and this is a moment we take to allow these legislators to speak to us. We will continue with the town meeting. And as I tell you that, remind you that there will be a second meeting after this. That second meeting will be on the cannabis petition. It too will be an information meeting. So just because we're getting to the end of the articles on the warning, it doesn't mean we're going to be at the end of the meeting times. So we'll continue with Article 4 on the Town of Chester warning. To see if the town will vote to purchase the following equipment through the Capital Reserve Budget Fund. Pickup truck for highway in the amount of $40,000, less any trade-in, to be financed for a term of 4 years beginning in 2023. A second pickup truck for highway in the amount of $45,000, less any trade-in, to be financed for a term of 4 years beginning in 2023. Cruiser for the police department in the amount of $41,000, less any trade-in, to be financed for a term of 4 years beginning in 2023. Mower for the cemetery department in the amount of $15,300. All is indicated on the capital budget reserve fund schedule unless any grant funds that may be received. This article will be on the ballot tomorrow. Is there any comment? Are there any questions? There being no comment, questions, we'll move on to Article 5. Article 5, shall the town of Chester appropriate the sum of $4,000 to Meals on Wheels of Greater Springfield, Inc. for continued support and services to the citizens of the town of Chester in accordance with 24 VSA 2691. Are there any questions or comments about this article?
Mr. Moderator, I just have a comment, and that is, I don't know if everybody recognizes the fact that Meals on Wheels has provided services in this area in our town for 50 years. We are now celebrating their 50th anniversary. So I'm so happy that we are able to continue to do this. Thank you.
Further questions or comments? There being none, we'll move on to Article 6. Shall the town appropriate the sum of $2,500 to support the Chester fireworks for Independence Day in accordance with 24 VSA Section 2691? Are there any questions or comments on this Article 6? There being no questions or comments, we'll move on to Article 7. Shall the town appropriate the sum of $13,807 to help support the home health, maternal and child health, and hospice care provided in patients' homes and in community settings by the Visiting Nurse Association and Hospice of Vermont, New Hampshire, in accordance with 24 VSA Section 2691. Are any questions or comments about this article? There being none, we'll move to Article 8. Shall the town appropriate the sum of $3,044 to help support outpatient mental health and substance abuse services by the staff of Healthcare and Rehabilitation Services, Inc., HCRS, in accordance with 24 VSA 2691? Are there any questions or comments about Article 8? There being none, we'll move on to Article 9. Article 9. Shall the town appropriate the sum of $3,040 to Southeastern Vermont Community Action to assist Chester in responding to the emergency needs of the community and providing all available and applicable services to families and individuals in need, in accordance with 24 VSA Section 2691. Are there any questions or comments about this request from SEVCA, Article 9? There being none, we'll move on to Article 10. Shall the town of Chester appropriate the sum of $900 to the Women's Freedom Center for general budget support to provide services to women and their children who are experiencing emotional, physical, and/or sexual abuse and are residents of the town, in accordance with 24 VSA Section 2691? Are there any questions or comments about Article 10? There being none, we'll move to Article 11. Shall the town raise and appropriate the sum of $1,200 for the support of Senior Solutions, formerly Council on Aging for Southeastern Vermont, for help and to support seniors and their families trying to remain at home and not be placed in a nursing home, in accordance with 24 VSA Section 2691? Are there any questions or comments about this Article 11? There being none, we'll move on to Article 12. Article 12, shall the town of Chester appropriate the sum of $2,250 for the support of Mover, Rockingham, to provide transit services to the residents of the town of Chester, in accordance with 24 VSA Section 2691? Are there any questions or comments about this article? There being none, we will move on to Article 13. Shall the town of Chester appropriate the sum of $800 to support Windsor County Mentors for youth mentoring services provided to children in Windsor County, in accordance with 24 VSA 2691? Are there any questions or comments about this Article 13? Yes, ma'am.
Carol Theodore.
Carol, would you step up to that microphone, please?
Carol Theodore, just a general question. How are the amounts determined for Articles 5 through 17? Was that what was requested by the organization, or did someone deem that an appropriate amount in each case?
So that's the requested amount that came into us. That's the easiest way to say that. Yeah, that's the requested amount. Sorry.
Are there further questions or comments about Article 13? There being none, we'll move on to Article 14. Shall the town of Chester appropriate the sum of $400 to Green Mountain RSVP and Volunteer Center of Windsor County to develop opportunities for people aged 55 and older to positively impact the quality of life in the community of Chester through volunteer service, in accordance with 26 VSA 2691. That's 24 VSA 2691. Are there any questions or comments about this Article 14?
I got the town meeting.
There being no further questions or comments, we'll move on to Article 15. Shall the town appropriate the sum of $1,800 toward the support of Community Cares Network of Chester and Andover, Inc., a nonprofit organization which provides services to senior citizens, helping them to stay in their homes longer safely in accordance with 24 VSA Section 2691. Are there any comments or questions about this Article 13? There being none, we'll move on to no, that was Article 15, excuse me. Thanks, Deborah. We'll move on to Article 16. To see if the town of Chester will appropriate the sum of $3,000 to assist in the services of the Chester Andover Family Center for individuals and families in need in accordance with 24 VSA Section 2691. There is a comment from Ms. Winicky. If you'd like to stand up in front of that microphone, please, Chris.
Chris Winicky, can you hear me? Good.
He's speaking to them as well.
All right. I'm the president of the Chester Andover Family Center, and first I wanted to thank you all for your past support. I think it's one of the things that makes Chester such a wonderful community to live in, and that is that we care for our neighbors. Last year, we provided 130 individuals and families with nutritious food. And we also received over 30 requests for financial assistance, and that was for anything from help with heating oil to electricity to temporary housing for fire victims. And we also, our thrift shop continued to help support those programs, as well as provide the community with affordable clothing and household goods. And we also did give some items from the thrift shop to families in need. We do this all with 100% volunteers, so I ask for your support again this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further questions or comments about this Article 16? There being none, we'll move to Article 17. Shall the town appropriate the sum of $1,500 to Neighborhood Connections, Inc., to cover the cost of providing services in Chester in accordance with 24 VSA Section 2691? Are there any questions or comments about Article 17? There being none, and we'll move on. That is the end of the articles on the town meeting warning. We have another informational meeting after this one on the petition, the cannabis petition. I'll remind you that the articles that we reviewed tonight on the town warning will be on the town ballot tomorrow, and you can vote tomorrow between the hours of 9 a.m. and 7 p.m. here in the second floor town hall to determine the success of the articles on the warning. This being an informational meeting, there are no further agenda items, so we're going to adjourn, and in about 5 minutes, we're going to go directly into the special town meeting informational session. So we are now adjourned. So if there's not a lot of movement, we may take less than 5 minutes to go to the next meeting.
Are they back on? my son's wedding.
Son's
Palm Springs. Found fancy grass.
Vermont? No, sorry, beautiful.
weddings.
Vermont sheep. I should show you.
Show me what? Is this of Harry's wife? Of Harry's fiance? Harry's fiance's dress? Oh, your dress. Your dress that you're wearing to their wedding. Got it. Yeah. Just kind of, you're gonna have all stuff hands up, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So we'll just have her yell. Want her to do that? Sure. Maybe you just address it. She can just No,
Just
sorry, I was
registered,
not
it's
listening.
just
Registered
registered
voters.
voters to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me tell you. Where she went. Are you counting votes tomorrow? Not counting votes. Hagan's playoff games tomorrow night.
It's my wife.
Who are they playing off against?
She's 35.
You know what?
Racing to bring out. This is a senior.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Tip off at 7. Will they keep the lights on?
Because of your glasses.
Hold the meeting. I'll make it.
Well, who is your option?
Hi, Jeff.
I didn't get a chance to say hi.
I know, I did.
Tim Johnson.
I like it.
So pull him up. Get us up.
You realize between Zoom and people here, we have 96 people.
Oh, good, someone kept track.
Oh, that's good.
I think we should have this every year, the Zoom.
Well, people seem to pay more, more people will pay attention. So.
Maybe we can't have, well, there has to be a way.
Well, yeah, we can.
Get more people.
Yeah.
I don't care how we
I
get.
like Zoom meetings. You know, I'm not at all put off by them.
I'm not all computer literate, and we always seem to have some kind of
Oh my God,
glitches.
I am totally not computer literate. But if somebody gives me the Zoom thing, the Zoom link,
Okay.
that's all I need to know.
I got to tell you about my religious experience last week. Do you want to hear
Your
it?
religious experience?
I had, God spoke to me in one day twice.
Yeah, I want to hear it.
So I've been looking for a puppy.
Oh my God.
Okay.
I think I know
So,
this story.
yeah, so I've been looking for a puppy. I go see this puppy. My dog, Henry, hates the puppies. And I'm like, I can't have these puppies. But then last week, I'm making this long story short, the lady calls me up again and I go, okay, I'll come and see you. So I talked to the Pilates teacher and I talked to Kim Hammond. And I said, I don't think I want a puppy. I want not a rescue, but where you know the family, but they can't, some situation, and then I'll get a dog and it'll be great. So I call my friend who lives in Manhattan. They had a place in Manchester, sold everything. They're moving to Miami. She calls me and she goes, I have to come up to see someone in Hanover. You want to go out to dinner? I go, yes, stay at the house. And she goes, okay. So she's staying out at the house Saturday, and then the lady calls about the puppies again. So I call her and I say, hey, what time I hate to say this, but what time are you leaving? Do you know what? Because I have to have an appointment. Right. And she goes, what appointment are you having at 9 a.m.? And she goes, I said, oh, I'm going to go look at puppies. And she said, Heather, one of the reasons was to take her free. Because we're moving to Miami and we can't have her in Miami. Can you believe that? Then I'm selling my car and I'm online and they're same day. Okay, earlier in the week I'm on getting a quote, Anyways, they go, do you have 2 sets of keys? I haven't seen a set of keys for a year and a half. So I push yes. And I say to myself, just in the back of my mind, you're going to have to look for those at some point, Heather, right? So I'm packing for this trip I'm going on and thinking, what can I wear? And I go to the closet a half an hour after she calls to tell me she wants me to take Humphrey. The keys in the jacket.
You are kidding me.
I am not
Oh
kidding.
my.
Hope you bought a lottery ticket.
Well, I haven't. I think I better, don't you?
I think you better.
But is that exciting?
That's a, well, and also tell him that Henry has met the dog now.
Oh, so I said, okay, well, you got to see how Henry likes him, because he's my man, you know, the main man. So I go to the highway, meet him at Sunoco, they're going out, whatever. He spends the day with us. They love each other.
Henry.
But guess what his name?
Humphrey.
Henry, Humphrey, and Heaven.
Oh, the Triple H. Oh, you know
Is
what
that a
that's
bit much?
high, hot, and a hell of a lot. That's my nursing stuff. I'm gonna do a Triple H something,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
An enema?
Yeah.
High, hot, and a hell of a lot. The 3H enema.
We know how to give it.
That's nursing stuff.
The skills that you have, you know. But isn't that amazing?
I know, it is amazing.
So we're going to resume our meeting, and we will reopen the town meeting to pick up the special meeting. And I remind us, as a town meeting, this is a meeting for the taxpayers and voters of the town of Chester. And if you are not a taxpayer, voter, or resident of the town of Chester, then you're welcome to listen, but this is not a place for you to participate. So we are going now to the warning, the notice of special town meeting. The legal voters of the town of Chester are hereby notified and warned to meet on Monday, February 28, 2022, at a time following the regular town meeting via Zoom and/or in person for a hybrid informational meeting on the following article. Voting on Article 1, the following article, will be by Australian ballot on March 1, 2022, from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the Chester Town Hall second floor. So this is Article 1. Shall the town of Chester authorize cannabis retailers in town pursuant to 7 VSA Section 863? So I'm going to turn the initial presentation and opening to Arnie Janinas, our Select Board Chair. And when he's finished, then we will take comments and questions from those who are able to participate in the town meeting.
Thank you, Bill. This special town warning came about because of 5% of the voters of Chester put in a petition to put it on the ballot. Once that happened, the responsibility to bring it forward to the voters fell on the Select Board. There's a time frame that was allowed for the meetings and for the vote to happen. We brought it up a lot quicker than we could have with the shortest distance possible, only to make sure that the vote itself would happen with the town meeting vote. If we didn't take that route, it would have been a special election held later on in the year. And the Chester Select Board has been having meetings over the last month regarding this issue also, to get as much information as we can out to the public, to answer any questions on how it affects our town, and what our rights or responsibilities are regarding this issue. This is a required informational meeting for the vote that's going to happen tomorrow, and it is very specific to what it is. Act 164 and Act 62 are the acts that are legalizing marijuana sales in the state of Vermont, which will happen in October of 2020. It is going to be controlled by the Cannabis Control Board, which sets forth all the rules and regulations regarding this issue. And the only one issue that we have much say on in the matter is whether a town can opt in or opt out of cannabis retail sales, just that. The growing part, the manufacturer, or any other businesses associated with it are allowed by state law. It is just the retail end of it that the town has a right to either opt in or opt out. And if they wish to have cannabis sales in their town, they have to do it by a special vote, and they have to opt in to do it. There was discussion when this first law came about, and they were having compromise on it, that they were going to do it the other way around, where they would allow it all over the state, and they would have towns opt out of it. They decided to do it this way to make sure that the people had a say in it. But it is basically the only issue that we have that we are going to be discussing today or offering any information on is whether the town would like to opt in or opt out. We have meetings over the last month. I believe there was 2 other meetings that we've had as a select board, and we've answered questions as we've gone along and questions that were presented to us and stuff. This one is the required meeting, the informational meeting for the vote, and it's for the purpose of answering questions or taking comments from people that would like to speak on this issue. So Julie, is there anything else that you would like to add to this? Is there anything that any other select board member would like to add to this before we go forward asking for comments or questions from the public or anybody that's on Zoom also?
I think I might have a clarifying question. Maybe I didn't hear it correctly, but maybe somebody else didn't either. This has been presented by, as Arnie said, a petition from a townsperson in Chester who would like to open a retail establishment for the sale of cannabis. That's great. I don't know does that say that the town is opting in, or really what I was thinking was saying, this is going to be a separate ballot that you're going to vote on tomorrow, and it's the will of the people. It's not so much the town opting in, I didn't think. I thought that was confusing to me. Maybe only
It is a vote of the people of the town whether they want to opt in or opt out.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the select board.
The petition was brought forward not for one specific business. I want to make that clear also. It was brought forward in a general way, not for a specific business, not for a specific location.
Right.
It is for the general article, the way it reads, state statute.
Okay, yes.
The person that is involved with it could possibly be involved in it in a future tense, as far as businesses, but that is not the case, and that is not the discussion that is part of what's going on tonight.
Thank you.
But if we've opted in, the vote comes tomorrow that the voters want to opt in, then individuals can come and request from the zoning for a permit to sell cannabis in town.
No, actually, I'm sorry, they have to go to the state for the permit. It's not us that gives the permit, it's the
But
state.
they have to get approval from the
The
town
Cannabis
first.
Control Board is responsible for issuing the permits.
Correct.
And they're going to be issuing the permits from the tiers 1 through 5 initially, the 6th one being the biggest one that they're leaving out at this time because they're trying to keep it small and they're trying to keep it local. But they would have to go through the Cannabis Control Board to get their license, and then they would have to come back to the town, and the town has no legal authority to
Say yes, sir.
take out just a rule or regulation specific to cannabis. It has to be just for retail. So if a retail business is allowed, a cannabis business would be allowed. And at present, right now, in the way the bylaws are written, retail establishments are conditional uses in Village Center, Stone Village, and I believe residential 20. With the new zoning laws that are coming forward, it would be an allowed use, because that was one big change that they had where they took retail away from being a conditional use in those areas to being an allowed use. So the only thing that we have as a town as far as control when it comes to a cannabis establishment would be through our zoning regulations, through our nuisance regulations and items like that. You cannot specify and take it out cannabis and make a separate category for it. So that's the way it would work as far as the town goes and stuff. Kathy? I'm sorry, Bill.
I need to clarify for you, the proposed amendment to the bylaws only involves the 16 parcels between School and Cobley Street on the green. That's the only place where a retail shop is a permitted use. Everywhere else, in the R20, in Village Center, it's still a conditional use. Okay?
Thank you, Kathy.
Thanks, Kathy.
So there has been the presentation by Arnie. Are there other comments by members of the Select Board before we open it up to public comment? I'll remind us that this is a town meeting and it's open to those who are registered voters, and so we look forward to the comments from all, both in person and on Zoom. Is there anyone who would like to make a comment or have a question about the petition? Yes, ma'am. And if you could step up, please, to the microphone.
Kathy Giortino. I'm interested in what the police think of this, how they would monitor people that use the cannabis in the area. If you have a store, whereas if you buy alcohol, there's certain areas where you can consume it and certain areas where you cannot. Would we have any control over that? And I just wonder how much control would the town actually have if the state is the one that approves things? How much control do we have if it turns out that it becomes a nuisance or a problem? And to my knowledge, there's no yet, if for alcohol, there's a DUI test that the police can administer. Is there one for cannabis? I don't know. I just wonder what the police view is on this also. And I think that's important.
Chief Cloud. I want you to come up as a member of the town administration and speak to us.
It's my understanding that it's going to be mostly done through the state level and the Liquor Control Board that's going to be regulating those things. On your question about roadside sobriety testing, there is not in the state of Vermont. There is not approved like a BAC level for alcohol, which is an alcohol sensor. There is not. So what we would have to do is call in a drug recognition expert. They come in as a certified police officer. They would come in and do the roadside sobriety. They would have to bring them to the Springfield Hospital, to the ER, apply for a search warrant, and draw blood. That's the only way it can be done. If it's done by a DRE through the state of Vermont, through Governor's Highway Safety, it's paid for by a grant. If there is not a DRE done or that's available, then we would have to do it ourselves, and then us as the town of Chester would have to pay for that. It's the ER cost plus approximately $1,000 for the test.
So it could be quite expensive for the town.
I think it'd be useful, Kathy, your commentary back and forth is of interest, but I think we need to direct it to the microphone. So, Chief, as you're presenting, that's great. If there are follow-up questions, that's great too, but I think we need to go through the microphone and not back and forth between the two of you.
Do you want me to get up and answer that question?
Sure.
I mean, okay. My question was what it would cost the town to do these sobriety tests, and you had said the state would pay for some at some level, but it might also be a charge to us of about $1,000. That could become quite an expense for the town. And that's one of the things I think we should consider.
Chief, anything further? All right.
Bill, can I just
Go ahead,
add something to that? These issues, I would like to make sure that people keep the issues specific to the one item that we're going to be voting on tomorrow, which is whether to allow retail cannabis in the town of Chester. Some of these issues that are on the periphery, on the edges and stuff, probably apply to a lot of things. There is no way right now to test for a lot of intoxicants, whether they're pharmaceuticals or the other illegal substances that are out there. Cannabis would not be any different than those two. So bringing it out specifically just for cannabis as a reason is not really an issue at this point. The the issue before us, we have to treat this like a business, like it would be like any other business. Because as far as the state is concerned, it is going to be legal in October of 20 to 22. And we can't break out cannabis because we are concerned about some of the ramifications of it. That's just the way the vote would have to go.
Arnie, can I jump in here for a second? I appreciate your comment. The concern that I see that Mrs. Guartino has expressed to us is the potential cost to the taxpayer. And so from that perspective, I think that it's appropriate for us to consider what those costs would be, regardless of whether it's cannabis or alcohol or some of these other substances that you mentioned. The fact of the matter is that there will be costs passed on to the taxpayer, not just of Chester, but of the state of Vermont as well.
I think everyone's right here, but whether we sell it in Chester doesn't necessarily mean that more people will be driving under the influence in Chester. If Bellows Falls is going to be selling it, you can go get it in like, I don't know what they're doing. Ludlow said no twice, but that's a statewide issue now. It's not really an issue that you can directly cause a correlation to with just selling it in town, because it's going to be sold all over Vermont October of this year, correct? Okay.
And that's my point, is not just directed to the town of Chester taxpayer, it's the Vermont taxpayer.
Yeah, true.
Go ahead, Bill. Further questions? Yes, sir.
Ian Montgomery, and yes, I pay taxes in Chester. I think this is the most horrible suggestion that we should vote to do this, because I do not want Chester contributing to the delinquency of Vermont.
Further comments or questions? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Hugh Quinn. I have a question and a comment. My question is, I know it's my understanding that it's possible for Chester to create a local cannabis control commission that would be between the town and the state cannabis control board. So my question is, has the select board thought about whether they would entertain that, and whether there would be any value in a local commission versus just deferring to the state cannabis control board? And I'll just throw my comment in at the same time. So I know you can't create ordinances and regulations for cannabis specifically, but there is precedent that's been set in other towns to create regulations around a category of businesses. So adult-only businesses, tobacco, firearms, adult entertainment, cannabis can be categorized and then regulated, at least to the extent where in the town those kinds of businesses can be established.
Thank you, Hugh. The answer to the local cannabis commission, I would think, would be a yes, if the measure does pass. Any control that we can help as far as regulation and control over this issue, would it be helpful to the town? So I would think it would be brought up before the board and to see what the board consensus of the board would be, but I would imagine it would be a yes on that point. What you're alluding to as far as those other zoning regulations and other ordinances relating to adult-only businesses and stuff, that would be something that would have to come through the Planning Commission and the DRB as far as adding them to our zoning bylaws, to have that extra layer of control over an adult-only business where you cannot categorize cannabis by itself, but it does fit into a different category when it becomes an adult-only business. So the answer to that is yes, but it would have to come from the Planning Commission to the and then through the DRB and get approved in that route before it finally takes effect, and it would work in that way, yes.
Do we have questions in the Zoom room?
Yes.
All right, Scott, come on up.
Oh, my name is Steve, Bill.
Hang in there, Steve.
Hi, Scott MacDonald. This is neither a pro or con about this opt-in. This is just a point of information and clarification that a lot of people have been talking on the various Facebook groups for our town about how the town's going to be able to make money and revenue from this. And a 1% retail addition to our retail tax has been discussed a whole bunch of times, but without clarifying whether it was a 1% strictly on cannabis sales or all retail. And my understanding is that it's a 1% on all retail in town. So what that actually does, and again, it's neither for or against, but if people think we're going to be getting tax revenue that isn't going to affect everybody in town, they're mistaken, because every time you shop in Chester, whether you're buying cannabis or not, you will be paying 1% more for everything you buy. And I believe, again, this has nothing to do with how I feel about the cannabis vote, but I believe people can't afford to pay an extra % on retail. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that that 1% was not specific to cannabis sales. All right?
Thank you. Julie.
So there's actually no tax revenue coming into Chester from it. We do not have a local option tax in Chester. That would be the only way that a municipality can receive a direct revenue stream through tax. So there is no 1% coming to Chester. We do not have local option tax in this town. In order to have that, that would be voted by the voters, and we have never proposed that. We don't have that at this time. So I might make sure that's clear.
I'm sorry to be rude. We have 6 hands up in the Zoom room that have been up for quite a while, and we haven't been recognized.
All right, after this comment,
do our
we're
best.
going to go to Zoom.
We don't have a local options tax, and you're correct, it would apply to everything that's all sales and stuff, and that's if you added it and stuff. Right now, the tax on cannabis sale is 20%, 6% sales tax, and 14%, I believe they call it an excise tax. And none of it at this time comes back to the local communities that host retail cannabis.
Okay, on Zoom, who do we have, Amy?
The first person is Jay Bailey. Jay Bailey.
Who's Jay Bailey?
Could I go forward?
The first person that had their hand up was Jay Bailey.
Could you identify yourself, please?
Sure, I'm Charlie Baker. I am a voter, taxpayer here in Chester. I'm not terribly familiar with the details of the state law, but I'm wondering, is there any prohibition of smoking cannabis in public areas? My worry would be that, not that people are using cannabis, but if there's a shop right on the green, what's to stop somebody to come out to the picnic table and just sort of make all the air fragrant? I picnic with my grandkids on the green, and I'd like to be able to continue to do that.
My understanding is just like you cannot sit on the green and have a beer, you cannot sit on the green and smoke pot either. So that, and I believe that's in the law, the way that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that was my concern. Thank you.
Further comments on Zoom?
Jay Bailey is the first one. Whoever Jay Bailey, please identify yourself and then you can speak.
Hi, yeah. My name is Jesse Bailey. Good evening. Hopefully you can hear me all right. I'm going to get right to the point. As a consumer, I don't really care about the availability of marijuana. I don't smoke it. It's not my thing. But as a resident of Chester, I do care about property values. And I cannot understand the thought process behind voting against a bump in property value. Because, a lot of people have been talking on Facebook about all the different pros and cons, but from everything I've seen, the fact is property values do go up when dispensaries go in. I mean, Clever, the real estate listing firm, found that in a study they conducted between 2014 and 2019, cities with retail dispensaries saw home values increase an average of almost $23,000. And that's more than cities where marijuana was illegal. And yes, that's a difference in illegality versus legality. But even outside those parameters, the Cato Institute, a very well-known think tank, everybody knows Cato, they found that homes near retail dispensaries increased almost 9% in value, which in turn brought up the city's or town's entire median home value at a rate higher than the national average. For instance, again, something I've seen on Facebook quite often, people referencing Denver and what they've done there, for people arguing for and against. In Denver, median home values rose about 68% in 2019, between 2014 and 2019. In that same time period, Colorado as a state saw an average increase of 58%, and Washington State saw an increase of 57% in their median home value. And beyond that, I don't want anyone to be fooled into thinking that retail cannabis, brings with it some kind of unsavory element that's kind of been, referenced as a possibility here, riding in on some wave of crime, because during that same time period, Colorado saw below average crime rates. And in most places with retail cannabis, it's the same, because that potential unsavory element realistically probably won't be buying real estate in a town that's suddenly much more valuable. And B, it's not someone's backyard plant. It's retail. It's a $13.5 billion industry in the U.S. alone. And, there was no sudden influx of drunks when the 802 started going in, right? So, and some people, with their white papers and so forth, they may say, but hey, we can't get a dispensary in here until October, so what's the rush to approve it? But as I understand it, there are also investors, investors capable of making this happen if that's the way we decide to go. But if we decide to wait, if we decide to drag our feet on this, then those investors may be unwilling to wait with us. They may be unwilling to stand by with fingers crossed and hope we do the smart thing. They may move on, and if they do move on, where does this leave us behind? Does it hurt us? Does it hurt our home values in the long run compared to surrounding towns who might be more than happy to take advantage of our missed opportunity? Because, I mean, the way I see it, let's be real, that's what it'd be. It'd be a missed opportunity, which, again, I just cannot understand wanting to vote for a missed opportunity. I can't understand for wanting to vote for lower home values, which is what
I'm going to interrupt you because I think that the other people are going to speak. So
okay, that's all I have.
An opportunity. So thank you very much.
3 minutes.
Scott is next.
But who's next?
Scott,
Yep, it's Scott Blair.
go ahead, Scott.
All right, so just to start, I just want to kind of overlap on a question that was asked earlier about consumption. Just so everybody's clear, the smoking, growing, and possessing is 100% legal in Vermont, and it has been. This is strictly just for retail and retail only. And I'm going to just list the benefits that I've seen and I've made publicly known, just from my point of view and my opinion. So for me, a new business in a booming industry brought to town brings more people to our town. Some people say, well, that's not 100% accurate because you don't know yet, but that's my opinion. Also, it makes an already legal product to grow, use, and possess available legally, which will make it so we don't have to go to the black market for this industry. Yes, the black market will still exist, but that's not going to be the only opportunity to possess and to get your marijuana or any type of cannabis. This also brings municipal products to those who need it or want to try it for their municipal purposes. So right now you can get medical marijuana from dispensaries that are medical dispensaries with a card. Not everybody qualifies for a card, and not everybody has the option to be able to go to these dispensaries as well. So this will make it readily available in our local town for veterans and anybody that might have some type of disability that would like to try this and have this as an option rather than having to resort to opioids and any type of addiction for those products. This also, just like it was mentioned, farming of the product is not something that the town gets to vote on. So this will also give us opportunity to support local farming as well. Local farming, as we all are Vermonters, is very important to quality of goods, and this is a huge way for us to be able to support local farmers. Other than that, I've got nothing else to say other than I've had the one and only CBD shop in the town, and I've educated multiple people on this product, on this law that's been in process for a while, and I've seen the type of people that are in need of this, and they have tried to come in to buy cannabis, and I can only sell hemp CBD products. So the people are coming to Chester that do need it and want it, and they do not want to have to go elsewhere for it if they do not have to. That is all.
Thank you. Who else?
Amy, what's the next one?
Risa Alexander.
Risa Alexander?
Risa?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Yes, I'm Risa Alexander, and I'm a resident of Chester. I pay taxes in Chester, and I am a voter in Chester. And to be honest with you, I was really surprised to discover that Vermont towns were not provided with a means to more carefully regulate the location of these businesses that would sell cannabis when retail sales were approved by the legislator. In fact, the only locations, it seems to me, that would be prohibited would be within a certain distance of a school zone, for example. So I believe that this fact is particularly important for us as citizens of a small town to consider. It seems to me that the townspeople of Chester, both in recent years and also past generations of Chester residents, have worked so diligently to build and maintain a quaint village atmosphere, an atmosphere that would attract visitors to our town and also to local businesses. It just bearing these things in mind, it seems to me that in order to successfully continue to build upon our attractive village atmosphere, we must rely upon the residents of Chester to preserve these efforts by voting to opt out of allowing the retail sale of cannabis. You know, without the ability to better regulate the location of the store that sells marijuana, I really truly believe Chester residents must opt out during the upcoming vote.
Thank you.
Amy, who's next?
Tom Bach.
Tom Bach.
Tom Bach?
I don't see him on there anymore.
Thank you, Tom Bach. I voted against this bill when it was on the floor. This is not some ordinary business. This has its tentacles everywhere. There's a huge body of research coming out of major universities and hospitals, including a large group of MDs that have formed at the University of Vermont Hospital that are working against the this whole idea that pot has no harm. The research is showing that young people under age 25 are being severely affected by major mental health problems, including schizophrenia and other major problems, because of the high THC content and other factors of pot, legal and illegal. I would vote against this again, and I agree with Ms. Alexander that if we want to attract families to this town, this is not the way to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else, Amy?
Robert Mead.
Robert Need.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I want to speak to a question that was raised before, which is, would it benefit the town if we opted in to form a local cannabis control board? I reached out to the state's cannabis control board to clarify this issue, and they reiterated that a local board still has no authority beyond local zoning. So I asked a direct question. If the town currently has zoning in place, it enforces zoning, it has a zoning administrator, it has a DRB, et cetera, does a local cannabis control board add any authority? And the answer was no, it does not. So essentially, a local cannabis control board just duplicates what we currently have in the way of control in the zoning administrator's office and with local police powers in terms of a nuisance. So I wanted to clarify that first. The second thing I wanted to say was just a comment on how this debate in Chester has kind of moved forward. It's unfortunately become contentious, and the question has been reduced to black and white. And I think in that process, we've lost sight of the nuance and the complexity of this question. I, for instance, support legalized cannabis. But I also support voting no at this time on the opt-in question. Because in my mind, no doesn't mean never. It means that the citizens of Chester are careful and diligent. And because the first license is not going to be issued for another 8 months, we will have no idea what the impact of retail cannabis dispensaries will be on small rural communities like Chester for at least a year, perhaps 2. So what I support is voting no on this opt-in question now and revisiting the issue in 12 to 24 months when we have something to look at. We can see cannabis dispensaries operating in other small communities. We can talk to the neighborhoods, the police department, the select board, and find out whether the benefits are there or whether there are negative impacts. So I would just suggest that the voters of Chester be careful, be diligent, and apply as much thought to this as they apply to any other consideration for the community. Vote no now and reconsider yes at a later time. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else?
Judy?
Jody?
Judy?
Judy.
Upper left corner,
Judy?
right there.
Going once, going twice.
Judy, are you there?
Judy Ogden?
Yes, it took me a minute to unmute, sorry. I think my question might have been answered by Mr. Need. My question was, if the town votes this down this year, when will be the next opportunity, and how long will the town have an opportunity to opt in? Is it every year from now on, forever, or what?
It could be brought back before the board again with another citizens petition of 5% of the voters, or it could be brought back by the select board itself for a future vote. Either of those 2 ways are the ways that it would happen.
There's no deadline.
Yeah, there's no deadline on it.
Thank you.
Lillian Willis.
Yes. In listening to the comments that have been made so far, I'd just like to point out that anything that is permitted in the village center seems to me to be one of the worst areas, simply because you have 2 churches, the elementary school and the town's library, really closely related to that vicinity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amy, who's next? Tom Simmons. Tom Simmons.
Tom Simmons.
Hi. I just want to say that right now, every day in Chester, people buy and sell cannabis. Right now, every day in Chester, people smoke cannabis. The question is not whether this activity is going to occur or not. The question is whether we are going to relegate it to a black market or whether it's going to be open where it's transparent and it can be regulated. We know from history that when things are prohibited, and I don't care whether it's alcohol or abortion or cannabis, when they're prohibited, it flourishes on the black market, the quality of the product suffers and people get hurt. And if you've read newspaper articles about fentanyl-laced cannabis, that's why that happens. The best approach to take is to be open and transparent about it. Any shop selling cannabis would be subject to exactly the same zoning regulations that we have in place for every other business. And apparently, those regulations have said it's okay to sell alcohol in the green, near the library, near the school. Well, folks, this is not 1950, and the whole reefer madness campaign should be put long behind us. We have waited. We have waited 80 years while people's lives have been wrecked by a criminal justice system for a plant. We've waited long enough. There is no additional cost to taxpayers because the police already have expenses related to the prosecution and testing of people who are smoking cannabis illegally or driving under the influence illegally. It's time to put this behind us and stop pretending that this is some big evil thing and just get it out and transparent and let it happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim Roper.
Thank you, Bill. I'm getting the impression that many of the commenters here have not read the regulations and the rules that have been put forth by the State Cannabis Control Board. For example, the controls on cannabis on retail sales are very strict. From reading the rules, as I understand it, for someone to buy cannabis in a retail establishment, they'll actually have to show their identification and prove that they're 21 or older 3 different times in that process. We don't do that for beer, wine, or alcohol. We don't think about beer, wine, and alcohol sales the same way this is being debated. I'd also like to add, to add to what Tom Simmons said, this product is out there. On the black market, there are no controls. People grow what they grow and they sell it, and it is what it is. Again, referring back to the Cannabis Control Board rules, the growers and manufacturers will be required to test every product for THC content, for CBD content, and maybe for some other things that I don't really understand. I'm not a scientist. And the products will be labeled clearly with those contents. Similar to alcohol, what is the alcohol by volume in a beer? That's a pertinent factor when if you've ever been pulled over by a police officer and asked, have you had anything to drink? What was it? Well, I had 2 beers. Well, were they 8% beers or 3% beers? So I see cannabis becoming available retail. It will be very well regulated, very well controlled. And then lastly, I'm not speaking for the Planning Commission, but I am a member of the Planning Commission. And I can't begin to count how many times I've heard in the past 3 to 4 years as a Planning Commission member, how it's important that our town support business. This is just another business. We could be talking about a donut shop. We wouldn't be having these same discussions. Is it sugar? Is sugar bad for you? Is it good for you? Are people going to eat it where they shouldn't? It's just another product. It's a retail business. It will, in fact, benefit our town like any other retail business. The tax aspect of it is pretty much irrelevant in my mind. That said, one last point. The State Cannabis Control Board has recommended to the legislature that they rethink the distribution of tax revenue and in fact allow towns who have opted into retail cannabis sales to benefit from that. Now, that's not a given that has to go through the legislature, but that is on the board still as well as a potential bonus. That's the only difference in my mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Who else?
No other hands on Zoom.
Anyone? Kathy?
First of all, I like Mr. Need's comment. I think it was to wait a year and see how it affects smaller towns. But I'm not saying that it's better to keep marijuana on the black market, because it is not. And it probably is healthier and safer if it's controlled. However, if people can't drive, let's say, to Springfield to get what they want for a year or two, then they don't want it that badly. It doesn't have to be in Chester. It can be in one of the other towns. Let's see how it works, what it does to the town, and then bring it up again.
Thank you. Are there any other comments on Zoom?
Yes.
Steve Mancuso.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I just find the whole thing very controversial, and be glad that it's come to a vote and not on the select board's back, quite frankly. But you're talking about a weed, okay? And you're only talking about the retail aspects of it. You do realize that there's a greenhouse for sale right now in Chester, and it's being marketed as, you know, you could grow cannabis, you know, all that. So the wholesale end of this has nothing to do with this. So, you know, despite all the pros and cons here, you know, I think it's coming to town, and it's coming to the state, it's coming to the country, no matter how much you oppose it. So short of outfitting the town trucks with Roundup and having them spray while they plow, the only way to really, you know, deal with this is to educate the people around you. And I'm backing up people like Tom and Tim and Scott saying it, Scott saying this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there further comments or questions? There being none, then we will adjourn this special town meeting. And remind you that starting at 9 a.m., you may cast your votes here in Town Hall. And do so until 7 p.m. tomorrow night. Thank you all very much for coming to this meeting. And we'll see you a year from now.